Hello, welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. It is a rainy Monday here in Braintucky, Florida, and I got so much done. I did a lot of admin work and just catching up on emails. I taught yoga teacher training this weekend, which was awesome. We have 11 people enrolled in the course. Some of them are 300, some of them are 200. And yeah, it's an honor to guide these things. This is my 14th yoga teacher training, I believe. So counting my 200s and 300s. And it's always a wild ride. I do typically one a year, though there was one year where I did two. And then I thought, yeah, I'm just going to do one because it takes a lot of time and dedication, the kind of teacher that I want to be. And the way that I teach is by giving my time, my energies, my love to my students. And anyone who's been through my course knows that. So, there's only one of me. I can't replicate me, and I'm not sure the world is ready for that. So I do dedicate my time and my heart and soul to my students. So it was a wonderful weekend and just getting caught up on things. And I wanted to continue my series on Bhakti Yoga as I promised in my last podcast. So Bhakti Yoga, if you didn't listen to the first podcast in this series, I do recommend rewinding it, pause it, rewind it, and then see if you can find the episode before this one. And if you're like, no, I already chose this one, okay, we'll work through it. It's fine. So Bhakti Yoga is a kind of yoga. It's one of the four main, or depending on what chart you read, five main styles of yoga, which is all about devotion to the divine. And so there's the last podcast, I talked about different aspects of sort of like precepts or pillars of Bhakti Yoga. And I talked about, it was like non-criticism, tolerance, non-offense, gratitude, seeing the good in others, and I think there's one more, but you can go to the podcast beforehand. So this practice is relatively new to me, though. There's a lot of Venn diagram overlap with what I already practice with the yamas and niyamas, being a longtime yogi and studying spiritual scripture, such as the Yoga Sutras. So it all kind of plays together beautifully, nicely. There's some differences, but nothing has to be black and white with me, which is very India of me. I like to kind of like take different aspects of things that like make sense to me, that I feel from within the framework of my body is productive, is good for me. And yes, and then I incorporate them into my life. And that's the space that I teach from. And isn't that lovely? Because it's not just a script or a template that I throw together and just spit it at you. These are things that I have digested, that I live in my life, and I try to teach from that space. And just small note, I am in a little bit of pain in my back. I don't know what I did, but I did a thing. So if I make a weird face or if I'm not quite as animated as usual, that is why. So just full disclosure. So there are different aspects of Bhakti Yoga, and part of the aspects I want to talk about today. So again, last podcast, I talked about the pillars of Bhakti Yoga, and today I'm going to talk a little bit more about like some other elements that make up Bhakti Yoga. So Archana. Archana is forming a relationship with the divine through rituals, such as puja. So puja is a ritual where this altar is formed, and there's so many different ways to do puja. Some gold standards is, I've heard, every good puja has a Ganesha. Ganesha blesses new beginnings, can also be a protector and kind of like grounds the elements. When I was studying Kalaripayattu in Kerala, we always had like kind of reverence to Ganesh. And you see this across India, many different pujas. If you go into the West and they're doing puja ceremony, it might not always be that the case, but for sure, one of the gold standards is having Ganesha. Usually there's some representation of the different elements. For example, the Mahapanchabhutas, which are the great five elements, earth, prithvi, jala, water, or up. And then we have fire, agni, Vayu, wind, and then ether. So usually there's a representation of some or all of the elements. And then there's other kinds of things that you see on a puja, like ghee or rice, cow dung, all kinds of things. And then like sometimes like some special trinkets, which is something that I do. So Archana, rituals through which you can kind of focus your mind, rein in your senses, and then draw a connection to the divine. And the divine can be whatever you like, whatever you perceive as. I would say the guidelines there is something that's bigger than you, something that's powerful, something that surpasses the ego. So, for example, if you had like a picture of you on a puja and it was all about you, probably not really following the guidelines of a puja, and that just sounds like some sort of egotistical thing like a supervillain would do in a movie. So that I would say probably is not puja. If you're giving reverence, sometimes there's teachers that are on pujas giving reverence to something outside of yourself, something other than you. Not that I'm saying don't believe in yourself, like, go girl, you got this. But the idea of puja is to kind of give way to something bigger than yourself. So Archana is about rituals that you would use to connect to the divine. And if you're into like Tantra, or even if you look at things like a murti is like a little statue representative of, say, like a Ganesha or a Durga Mataji or Mahalakshmi or Shiva, something like that. So these are different deities, or Jesus, whatever it is. So we have sort of these stand-in representatives, I'm going to say, of the divine that you would put up on the puja. You can also have pictures. You can have even just, like I said, a kind of trinket, something to represent this force that you want to tap into, that you want to connect with. It's, I think, well known that I connect with different deities each year. This is my year of Saraswati, and I have images of Saraswati all around the studio and I just ordered some more. So this helps me to like look at that aspect, and it's not about a little statue, right? Like I'm not just like, oh, this little statue is going to come to life and fix all my problems. It's rather like I see that as a representative of what is already inside of me. And because, God exists all around as well as inside. And for me, Saraswati is a representative of musical capability, of studying language, of arts, and that sort of devotion that it takes to be able to do those things. So Saraswati for me, like I'm conducting Archana with a Saraswati very, very often right now in my life, which it's very rewarding and I'm loving it. And I'm chanting more mantra than ever. And I'm back to studying Japanese and Sanskrit and Malayalam. And yeah, it's wonderful. I love it. It's so great. And I'm working, like I'm a hard worker. That's just kind of in my DNA, but I'm not working as much, or at least it doesn't feel that way because I have so much play to balance it out. And I'm keeping up with my sort of self rituals, which is sadhana, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So we have Archana, and then we have Sakya. Sakya is forming a friendship with the divine, which is an interesting concept. We have t-shirts at the studio that say like Durga is my homegirl, and we also have t-shirts that say Ganesha is my homeboy. And I remember checking in with my Indian national friends, just saying, hey, like I don't want to be disrespectful, but like I think this is a pretty cool idea, and it's forming a friendship with these different gods and deities. And my friend Priya, who is editing this podcast, was like, oh my gosh, yeah, like that's great. Like, of course, Ganesha is your friend. Like, Ganesha is your homeboy. Like, what an awesome concept. And I gave my Kalari Payattu teacher, who he wears it often, especially when we train online doing Kalari Payattu. Ganesha is my homeboy and has the Thrive logo on the back for branding, right? But it's a really cool concept. Like, people think of God as like this thing outside of us that, again, it's bigger than us, but it's also like so removed, like a concept and a theory rather than practical application. I think about that way with, like, for example, anatomy. When you learn anatomy in a typical like university setting. There's charts, there's books, there's lists and numbers, and having that stuff as reference can be helpful, but anatomy becomes much more interesting when it applies directly to your particular body. And so experiential anatomy is how I teach most anatomy, though, again, I have like the muscle lists and all that stuff, but that can get really dry really quick. So in this way, if you're forming a friendship with the divine, it's like, I don't know, think of how you feel when you're going to go meet your friend. Like you're wagging your tail and you're like, yay, we're going to go hang out. It's going to be fun. We're going to talk about things. We're going to bond. Can't you have that kind of relationship with the divine? Well, in Bhakti Yoga, they say, yeah, sure, you can, of course. And in fact, please do. So, so Archana, Sakya, and then the next part of Bhakti Yoga, and I talked about this a little bit last time, is the mantra and the chanting. There is something energetic that happens when you're chanting mantra. It is like the acupuncture of, or Reiki, of healing arts and music and connecting to divine. It works on a like molecular level to kind of get in there in a deep way and move big energy. Singing is heart opening. Chanting mantra is heart opening. And I experienced that in a big way in India this last time. I was surprised, went to a Hare Krishna retreat because I wanted to train with Ray Kapu or Raghunath Kapo, who he's going to be on the podcast later this, actually March, along with Ann Swanson. Very excited for those guest interviews that I'm doing, and going to use this chance right now to plug my India retreat, which I have 2 spaces left. We had another sign up, so just 2 spaces and then it's gone. And then my Japan retreat, which is happening in November. So if you're interested in any of those things, you can reach out to me, Erin@erincoach.com, and we'll hook it up. We'll get you signed up. All right, so mantra and chanting is something that I'm also incorporating more into the studio. I lugged my harmonium all the way to Mumbai and then to Thailand and then all the way back. And it's a beautiful instrument and I love it. And I know some of the keys now, I know some of the chords, and it's like just playing that and then having a little bit of repetitive mantra helps me to connect to a deeper space within me. And I'm sharing that with my students and they're chanting too. Yes! I was hoping that that would happen, but people can be shy about their voice, but the acoustics at my studio thrive. are amazing, and that gave me confidence. And I think like the kind of welcoming and accepting energy that I bring with the non-criticism, non-judgmental tolerance, and non-offense that I kind of bring with the whole Bhakti Yoga thing and gratitude, like I think that permeates into people. The energy that you carry is going to affect the people around you. I was talking about this in yoga teacher training. So if you can create a space like that, which I'm so proud that I have, then people will let down their guard and they'll kind of go for it. And people that thrive are chanting. And I'm like so stoked about it. It's awesome. So mantra and chanting, definitely a part of Bhakti Yoga. And if you're like, this Bhakti Yoga sounds awesome, I do recommend that you follow Raghunath Kapo. He's one of my teachers, and he has a podcast called Wisdom of the Sages. And his whole crew are they're awesome. I totally want to be their friends. They're definitely like the cool kids. And I'm also a cool kid, but I'm like, please be my friend. And so hopefully I'll be doing more retreats with them in the future. Okay. So next thing, and this is Venn diagram overlap with just, being a yogi, is Swadhyaya, self-study, like kind of looking at your role in the world and how you're showing up and what you're doing and paying attention to details. So being insightful and paying attention to details is something that's very important to me. Love is in the details. I recently, acquired, I started a new relationship, which is fun and exciting and a tiny bit scary. And one of my favorite things about this fella, his name is Kyle, you can stalk him now, is that he pays attention to detail. And he notices little things about me, little things about my behavior, and he talks about it, points it out, and it's one of my most favorite things about him, which is pretty neat. I like to think that I have attention to detail, and not with like keeping my car clean or even my room, but if you look at my studio, meticulous. If you look at the relationship I have with my students as far as being able to see them, it's deep. And so that kind of level of Swadhyaya and study and being aware is par for the path in Bhakti Yoga as well as just generally in yoga. If you're not paying attention, like life is passing you by. And just because you're paying attention doesn't mean that you have to hyperanalyze and you have to criticize. Rather, you can use discernment and you can just observe. Part of meditation is paying attention. Part of being a yogi is studying yourself and noticing your thoughts. So, if you're kind of like, well, why do I feel this way? I just have a vague discomfort within my body all the time, and I don't know why I act the way that I do, and what the fuck's wrong with me? Maybe you need to slow down and pay attention. Just saying, just offering. If you can slow down your mind and kind of tune into the space between your thoughts, then you get more of a sense of who you are. And if you can look at things with curiosity and look at your behavior as patterns rather than a like deep character flaw that can never be solved, then you have more love towards yourself and you're able to solve problems. Imagine if you're trying to solve a problem, like say a math problem, and you're trying to do it, and you're like, okay, figure this out, carry the y, and someone's just like over your shoulder, just like, dipshit, like you'll never get it, or I don't know, hurry up, you got to get this, we have to go, like rushing you, all this stuff. Like it's very, very hard to focus if you have someone micromanaging you. But also if you have an internal voice that is a jerk, that's also micromanaging you and telling you're not good enough and that you'll never get it, probably make that come true because it's very, very distracting. So if we can have our own back, if we can be on our own team, then that really helps us to commit to this practice of studying ourselves. So Swadhyaya. The next thing is sadhana. So sadhana is having a regular disciplined practice of something. So mine is yoga, meditation, and kalaripayattu. I have other things. I don't consider them my sadhana, which is like studying Japanese, which is studying Malayalam, and some of the other things that I do. I don't consider it a sadhana, though I could probably explore that. But I definitely have certain things that help me to connect with me, that help me to further myself on the spiritual path. And having some kind of sadhana, whatever it is a form of emotional and mental hygiene, period. All right, I'm going to talk more about it. People don't think about mental and emotional hygiene. Physical hygiene, I mean, I hope you think about that, brushing your teeth and washing your hair and rubbing your body down, like scrubbing it. That's important. And, flossing your teeth and getting like deep cleans and even like, having an organ detox, like taking certain foods to release substance and chemicals that might build up in the body. That is important as far as hygiene too. But mental and emotional, that builds up. I mean, if you're making decisions constantly, if you are, like swapping one activity to the next activity to the next, if you're just dealing with a lot of people, or if you're just thinking a lot, which that's part of being a human, if you're not doing emotional and mental hygiene, it will catch up with you. It will start to harden and it will sort of dirty up the lens that you're looking at it. So taking some kind of sadhana just wipes that lens clean so you can see clearly. Taradrashtu swarupe vastanam, seeing reality as it truly is without distortion, or at least less distortion. The last part about Bhakti Yoga that I'm going to talk about, because I do have to teach a vinyasa class in a little bit, is Sangha. Sangha is spiritual community. Sangha is so important. And the first 3 years I had Thrive Open, I didn't get it. And I feel like, we had a lot of people, but I felt kind of disconnected from our community. And then I continued on the yoga path. I'm a student too. And I realized how important community is. That is it. And we have an amazing community at Thrive now. People know each other's names. I know, how's your wife doing, Jack? How's your, how's your husband doing? How's your son? I know people's names. I know what's going on in their life because I care, because they're interesting to me and I love them. And they love the studio back. It's just this beautiful giving and taking. It's so important to have spiritual community, y'all. If you don't have a community you're plugged into, you're isolating. And when you're on the spiritual path, there's stuff that comes up that it's important to have spiritual people in your life so you feel less like an alien and you can connect with them on that subtle heart level. It's very important. So Sangha is like invaluable, it is irreplaceable, it is just something that is a part of Bhakti Yoga as well. And when I saw that, I was like, yes, because it's a huge part of regular yoga too. So I hope that this podcast was enlightening or at least very interesting or mildly entertaining. So I'm going to continue this series next week with another episode about Bhakti Yoga and just some of the applications of it. And yeah, if you're listening to this and we've met, hey, what's up? How you doing? I'm doing great. If we haven't met, shoot me an email. Let me know how you're enjoying the podcast. You can also leave a review on the podcast, which always helps, just so people can find me. And just send me some love. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic week. And namaste.